Joe Biden's using Milton to play politics.
Mr. President, have you spoken with former President Trump at all?
Are you kidding me? Mr. President Trump, former President Trump, get a life, man. Help these people.
Will you hold him accountable? You said you were going to hold those accountable.
Public will hold them accountable. You better in the press hold them accountable because you know the truth.
Biden spent almost as much time talking about Trump as he has the hurricane. He wants to run for re-election so badly, but he can't, and it's driving him nuts. But Kamala's worse. For 3.5 years, she sat on the sidelines for every hurricane while Biden ran the show. She's never been interested in leading. She was assigned to control the border, but she walked away. Just wasn't really her thing. Kamala Harris isn't interested in logistics, resource allocation, data analysis, communications, or anything it takes to handle a crisis. You can't save a drowning person with dreams and aspirations. So she'd rather just have other people take the lead. But she's running for president, and it looks bad that she's sitting on the sidelines while Biden and Trump and DeSantis, handle business. Poor little Kamala's feelings are hurt. She's left out. But the more she tries to help, the more she just gets in the way. Back-to-back hurricanes, she's appointed herself misinformation czar.
It is dangerous. It is unconscionable, frankly, that anyone who would consider themselves a leader would mislead desperate people to the point that those desperate people would not receive the aid to which they are entitled. And that's why I call it dangerous. And we all know it's dangerous. And the gamesmanship has to stop. At some point, the politics have to end.
And Kamala Harris, who's never gotten involved with hurricanes, ever, thinks she has DeSantis on speed dial and picked a fight with him. What a dumb idea.
They put out a story saying I didn't even know she was trying to reach me, but she has no role in this process. And I've been dealing with these storms in Florida under both Trump and Biden. Neither of them ever politicized it. She has never called in Florida. She has never offered any support. So what she's doing is she's trying to inject herself into this because of her political campaign. And for her to try to say that my focus should be on catering to her rather than worrying about my own people just shows she doesn't understand what it means to respond to these natural disasters.
Kamala's not in the chain of command. All she's doing is slowing things down. Right before the first hurricane, she was at a party. Right before the second, she was drinking. Now she wants to wear a windbreaker and be a storm chaser. Not happening. During her Zoom hurricane briefing, Kamala looked bored and then was caught snapping at her staff for handing her talking points during a live broadcast. Listen.
So just really looking at some of the areas in Hillsborough River, Alafaya River, the Peace River, some of these type of traditional places that could flood. We really got to watch those areas and those communities. So
now we're watching Kamala Harris shrink as a leader during hurricane season. She's been overshadowed. Her participation's unnecessary, as most vice presidents are during hurricanes, to be fair. She's only politicized the storm and managed to make herself a nuisance. She failed the leadership test. But if you've been following Harris for the last 4 years, this isn't her first F. Fox News alert, Barack Obama thinks Kamala Harris has officially plateaued. And behind the scenes, he's saying worse. Kamala's losing the black vote. He was caught saying this just moments ago in Pittsburgh.
We have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all directly and say that when you have a choice that is this clear, when on one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you, went to college with you, understands the struggles and pain and joy that comes from those experiences.
Now they're going to need white dudes and black dudes for Harris hats. Now, the Obamas and the Clintons are telling her no more talking. The men are taking over.
They need to be sharp. They need to be aggressive. They need to stop answering questions and start asking questions. I would put President Obama out to make that. He's only got a 92% approval with Democrats. He only is the father of 23 million people having insurance. I would have President Clinton going on these local TV stations talking about how tariffs are going to destroy the economy of Wisconsin or Michigan. The whole campaign needs to be much more aggressive and much less passive than they are.
This is a softer, gentler coup. She's still the nominee, but Obama and Bubba are going to be taking charge. They're letting Bill Clinton loose. The comeback kid is hitting the campaign trail for Harris. And the Messiah, he is back. Barack's in Pittsburgh, and the media is orgasmic.
There probably isn't another human being on the planet right now capable of providing more of an electric jolt to the Democrats' most winning coalition than President Barack Obama.
Barack Obama really has become the country's chief explainer in chief, the person who wants to explain the moment we're in, the position we are, the stakes.
He's obviously one of the best, if not the best orators in politics that we've seen in many years.
Barack is here to mansplain Harris to the country. You know, when the young lady says holistic, what she really means is, here he was just moments ago.
This election's going to be tight because there are a lot of Americans who are still struggling out there. So I get it, why people are looking to shake things up. I mean, I am the hopey changey guy. So I understand people feeling frustrated and feeling we can do better. What I cannot understand is why anybody would think that Donald Trump will shake things up in a way that is good for you.
He just said America's struggling and wants change from the Biden-Harris administration. And Harris just said she doesn't represent change. They don't have it this time, guys. Obama once said Kamala Harris was the best-looking attorney general in the country. He said she's Jamaican me crazy. Can he push his crush over the finish line? Feels like it's too late. Everyone knows Kamala Harris is Joe Biden.
If anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
After she said that, she went on Colbert and somehow made it worse.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of... Yes. But also, I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump. And so when we think about the significance of what this next generation of leadership looks like, were I to be elected president, it is about, frankly, I love the American people, and I believe in our country.
Oh, my God. Kamala has had 2 months to come up with an answer to one question. Who are you? The best she could do is I'm not Joe Biden and I'm not Donald Trump. That's it. The core question of this election is, how is Kamala different than Joe? They staged a coup because Joe is Joe and he couldn't win. You can't say you're the same guy. She just said, I do all of these things that this terrible guy did. The same stuff. The guy that was so terrible we cooed him. But I'm totally different from him. But I can't put my finger on how. Kamala just went on television and said she's running for president because she's not Trump or Biden. I mean, we can go out on the street right here and pick anyone, and they have the same qualifications. CNN's not even convinced.
Vice President Harris has been asked repeatedly how she's different. than President Biden. And some people think she's been tripped up by answering that. How do you think she is different than President Biden?
Well, first of all, whatever the differences is between them, it's not nearly as vast as the difference between her and Donald Trump. She's obviously a woman. She is a woman of color, and she is of a new generation.
Kamala's not Joe Biden because she's younger, black, and wears high heels. That's the best Democrats can do. He's a surrogate for the Harris campaign, and the only difference he can point out are biological. They can't answer the question because she's not different than Biden. She's just a machine politician that supported party bosses to get promoted. And she's been promoted all the way to the top. And she's still loyal to the party boss because she doesn't know any better. It's the only thing she knows that works. Blind loyalty. She's never had to do anything on her own. She's only had to say yes to get ahead. She's no different than Joe. They're just branding her differently. The Democrats spent $1 billion on Turn the Page, A New Direction, millions of dollars on commercials, signs, T-shirts, and she just lit it on fire. They say MAGA's a cult. What do you call this? She can't think of one thing she'd do differently than Joe Biden. Not Afghanistan, spending, the border. I can think of a few things I would have done differently than Trump. January 6th comes to mind. I'd do that differently. Kamala should try it. Pick something that didn't go well with Joe. Look around. There's plenty to choose from. She's too afraid to pick because she's just a puppet. The machine won't even tell her something to say about how she's different from Biden because it would make the machine look bad. They'd have to admit that they screwed up because Biden's just a puppet too. And Democrats can never admit they made a mistake because they've been lying about how great everything's been. Kamala, who's been in power for 4 years, then said, the American dream is gone.
The American dream right now is really elusive for far too many people in terms of even aspiring to own a home. It's too expensive.
I mean, if you're Obama, you have no choice but to step in. You send her to do interviews, not in the Lion's Den. You send her in to do The View, to do Colbert. And she says, I'm Joe Biden and I killed the American dream. The only thing different about Kamala was her accent.
Have you no empathy, man?
Yes.
You know, for the suffering of other people. Have you no sense of purpose?
Was that a leprechaun? Was that Indian? Was that Jamaican? What was that? I'm getting so... I mean, Kamala Harris has now reached the beer drinking stage. Watch.
One of the old saws is, they just want somebody they can have a beer with. So would you like to have a beer with me so I can tell people what that's like? Okay. Now we asked ahead of time because I can't just be giving a drink to the Vice President of the United States without asking. You asked for Miller High Life. You asked for Miller High Life. I'm just curious.
Okay, the last time I had beer was at a baseball game with Doug.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
There you go. Ooh. That tastes like the beautiful city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Champagne and beers.
There you go.
When female politicians start sipping beer on TV, that's when you know they're losing. And they're especially losing men.
So that's kind of nice because it looks really dark in color, but it's very light in flavor.
It is.
So
Yeah,
you get a lot of them like drinking or something like that. Cheers.
Cheers. That's right. That's good.
Oh, you have a flight getting in on it.
We've reached the pandering to the white working man phase. Next, Kamala will be driving a pickup, shooting pheasants with walls, probably throwing on an army helmet like Dukakis. A politician sipped a beer on a late night show. I've seen more edgier stuff on SpongeBob. These aren't even interviews. These are just opportunities to make Kamala look good. And it's not even working. The media is just trying to manufacture a moment for Harris. But you can't fake a personality with beer and accents. So they're turning to Obama. And this. Bill saw that and said, Hillary, get me some Doritos. I'm going to Michigan. Democrats are just throwing things at the wall, hoping it sticks now. While Trump's just doing his thing. He went on a podcast with a bunch of comedians, and here's what he said about Biden.
He has one ability I don't have.
Yeah.
He sleeps. He can sleep. This guy goes on a beach and he lays down on one of those, 6 ounce, they weigh 6 ounces and he can't lift it. Yeah. And somebody convinced him he looks good in a bathing suit. And when you're 82, typically bathing suits aren't going to make you look great.
Right,
You're
right.
not going to be enhanced.
Yeah.
All right. It's just one of those things. I can't be sure about that, but typically you don't.
Depends what he's packing. He could.
I don't
have
know
it
what
like
the
that.
hell he's packing, but I don't want to, and I don't want to know either. I don't know.
Now, what makes Trump interesting is that he's unpredictable. Kamala, you could see what's coming a mile away.
I do a thing called a weave. Yeah. And there are those that are fair that say, this guy is so genius. And then others would say, oh, he rambled. I don't ramble. If I saw the story, what you do is you weave things and you do it. You have to have certain things. You need an extraordinary memory because you have to come back to where you started.
Yes.
You always, a weave is only good if
They would
you
give
come
you credit
back.
for that.
Yeah, it's true.
That you could go all the way over here and then
I
get
can
back.
go so far here or there. And I can come back to exactly where I started. Now, someday when you don't come back to where you started,
you're Biden.
Then you say,
Trump now ahead in Pennsylvania, Michigan. He only needs to win one of those. And then that's all she wrote. He's a favorite in the betting markets and has the momentum. It's close, don't get me wrong, but you'd rather be Trump than Kamala right now. His internal numbers must be really good because he's making a play for Virginia, Minnesota, New Jersey, and I don't even think this is possible. I shouldn't even say it, but he said it. Even New York.
we just rented Madison Square Garden. We're going to make a play. We're going to make a play for New York. Hasn't been done in a long time. It hasn't been done in many decades.